Me on today. It was hard to believe that 20 years ago when 9/11 occurred that we didn't actually have a building disaster response team at the federal level. I mean, everyone knows all about the National Transportation Safety Board, who investigates every plane crash in America. This team that we actually have in Miami today did not exist 20 years ago. So the history of it was the family members of 9/11, particularly the firefighter families and Sally Reaganhard, most notably, created a group which advocated for an investigation into what happened to the Twin Towers. And coming out of that was a law that was passed that created the National Construction Safety Team. So this is something that we're very encouraged about. The fact that 9/11 actually, has perhaps a positive impact on what's happening in Miami today is a legacy to the folks in both disasters, really. Inquiries into the Miami collapse right now. The one that NIST will do, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is a technical investigation. They're going to look at what caused these buildings to collapse, basically, and most importantly, they're going to look at what recommendations they can make going forward to try to prevent this from happening again. Of course, that's an important part of the law that created them. But there are other inquiries going on. Of course, we understand it's a grand jury investigation, which is probably looking at issues of accountability. So NIST work doesn't really involve that kind of situations, more about, again, the technical aspects of it. And there'll be other inquiries for a variety of purposes. At the end of the day, NIST has a reconnaissance team down there right now. They'll be gathering physical evidence they think would be necessary for a full-blown investigation. For example, look at samples of concrete. They'll look at samples of the reinforcing bars. And they'll get the physical evidence that they believe they need right now to sort of get the investigation into motion, basically. Salt water, of course, as you just said, is very corrosive, and it does not react well, of course, with metals, particularly in the rebar, specifically in concrete. So this is something that one of many, many things they're going to look at. So they're going to get sets of plans. They're going to look at the design of the building, look at the issues of how the building was constructed. Again, that's where the physical evidence from that perspective comes in. But they're also going to look primarily, and I think this is something that will take probably a while here yet, but once all the victims have been recovered, that will expose the base of the building here. And that's probably going to tell us a lot about the sequence of events that happened, along, of course, with other documentary evidence, including that video that everyone's seen at this point. These are, the Florida teams have been around for decades now. They're very, very well experienced in doing, urban search and rescue operations. And part of that is the risk that's associated with that. The existing building is certainly for them is a problem. As well as the pile itself, basically, and the issues of taking it apart and to some extent destabilizing that pile, which can be proved very dangerous. In terms of the weather, that will make it just incredibly more difficult. We know that they're pulling the members off the pile during lightning storms because it's just too dangerous to do that. But they also, like I said, have to deal with now with particularly hurricanes and things coming in that might really add a lot of additional problems to what they've got right now. So they'll deal with it, though. They plan this out hours ahead of time. They do cycles, basically, and they look at the weather conditions and they decide what changes they might make to their plans and what they're doing at the particular moment. So, yeah, that's important. The weather is certainly important. I was pleased to see that there is a grand jury being impaneled. Many years ago, grand juries were sort of the investigators of every big event, basically, and we don't use them very often for this purpose and things. So, but in this particular case, as I mentioned earlier, it's probably going to be an issue of the accountability and who said and did what, basically leading up to this collapse. So they will really won't get into the technical aspects of how the buildings fell, but more about what were the sort of the people part of this, right, ahead of time. What did people do or not do that sort of was the chain of events that led to the disaster here. So, it's another piece of an investigative puzzle. I'm sure that they're working under unified command system down there. So all these different inquiries that are going on will work together to make sure they all get individually which each group is looking for to make sure that they get to the answers that they want.
Part of that hill. On the back side, we got access from that. We're going to work on possibly using this road.